Okay, good morning, everyone. So this video is intended for the discussion of our lesson 4, the accounting equation. So this will be the part 1. So I'll be uploading the part 2 and the part 1 later. So welcome to our next topic, the accounting equation. So the statement of assets and liabilities and net worth. So you are very familiar with SALN. Kabalo naman mo sa SALN, di ba? And it is commonly connected to public officials. So almost every year, we always hear how Senator A increased his or her net worth by a certain amount, or Senator B becomes the richest senator in the Philippines. Well, Senator C is the poorest. Naman na siya, gakadungog na to na siya every now and then sa news, sa television. So, have you wondered how this computation of net worth of an individual is derived from one? It is derived from one of the most fundamental concepts in the study of accounting, which is the accounting equation. Okay, so we have our accounting equation. Assets is equal to liability plus equity. So when we say assets, it is the owns. It is where the company owns. So this is the left side of the equation. It represents what the company owns, while the liabilities and equity is the claims. So the what company owns are these resources that the entity controls in order to attain future benefits. So on the other hand, on the right side of your screen, represent the claims of the different parties of the company's assets. So ang liabilities represents the claims of the entities, while equity represents the residual interest of the owners of the entity. So meaning, ang liabilities is money siyang sa Tagalog pa mga kautangan. So now, let's proceed to the elements of accounting equation. So what are the elements of accounting equation? First, we have assets. Assets class are resources that an entity owns in order to derive from future benefits. So these assets are used by the company in its normal operations, such as, for example, the manufacturing of goods or delivery or services. So the main feature of these assets is their capability to give benefits to the entity. So these benefits are usually in the form of their ability to directly or indirectly increase the inflow of cash to the entity or a reduction of its outflows. So some examples of these assets are the following. First is cash. We have accounts receivable. Third is inventories, equipment, land and building, and intangible assets. Okay, so what is cash? This is found in your module. Cash is generally, it is money. Cash, kwarta, of course, that we use. It is comprised of bills and coins. So we use in our everyday lives in order to buy the goods that we want and also avail the services that we need. So however, the accounting for cash, we also consider cash as the money that is deposited in the bank. So that's why in our accounting, we have cash on hand, meaning cash na nagid sa imong mga kamot na pwede nimo siya magamit or anytime, and also cash on bank. Okay, cash in bank. So when we say cash in bank, mo siyang cash nimo nga na sa bangko. And even undeposited checks from customers. Second, we have accounts receivable. So accounts receivable class, this represents amounts that are collectible from the customer. For example, si Nico, nakautang siya kang JI. So, si JI na siya accounts receivable from Nico. So that is accounts receivable. So they arise when a business sells its goods or services on account or on credit. Third is inventories. When we say inventories, this is an items or these are an items that are available for sale. So for example, you have a sari-sari store. So everything that are being displayed there for sale is an inventory. Okay, remember, inventory is everything that are available for sale. That is inventory. Fourth is equipment. Equipment is when we say, for example, bakery or mga pandesal shop. So would need ovens or furnaces in order to properly and actually create their goods. So the product of these ovens is the pandesal, so which would be sold later on and eventually increase the cash of the shop. So equipment. So ang oven, furnaces, that is equipment. 5 is land and building. So in most businesses, a physical store is necessary for them to operate. So for example, how can a local karinderya function if wala siya actual nga store? And asa pod ang barber shop mag-operate if wala siya kaugalingon nga building? So such building are also assets of the businesses. And these buildings are owned by the company so that they can use them for their business to operate normally. So lastly is intangible assets. So when we think of the things we can own, we normally think of tangible things or those things that can be touched. But however, class, it says that assets also encompasses intangible things that can neither be seen nor touched. So for example of asset that can neither be seen nor touched is software used by computer shops. We have Microsoft. Diba? Dili man nato na siya mahahawiran. Makita lang nato siya. So it is an asset. We also have trademark. We also have patents, copyright. Diba? What is a trademark of Jollibee? Yellow and red nga buyog. So that is, makita nimo na siya, una-una yun ka kang Jollibee. It's Jollibee. So it's an asset, intangible asset. So it is a still asset that will earn the shop future benefits. So let's proceed to credit or liabilities. Liabilities are one of the claims of external parties from the entity. So these debts do not always have to be paid in money. Some of these liabilities are in form of obligation to do some service or even give something. So liabilities can take form in the following. We have accounts payable and unearned revenue. So when we say accounts payable, it is the opposite of accounts receivable. So let's go back to our example na si Nico nakautang kang JI. So si JI, ang yaang record is accounts receivable from Nico. So na siya the kwaunon nga money from Nico. How about accounts payable? Kinsay mag-lease o kinsay mag-record sa accounts payable? It's Nico. Si Nico na siya accounts payable kang JI. So when a local supermarket or convenience store like 7-Eleven buys its goods, it is unusual for it to immediately pay cash for such goods. So normally, class, it would only incur an obligation to pay its supplier after a certain number of days. Next is unearned revenue. So unearned revenue, for example, telecommunication companies such as Globe, Smart, or Dito. So they offer prepaid load to customers. So the load credits class can later on used by customers to for text messages or call other people. So on the other hand, when Globe or Smart receive payments from customer, it creates an obligation for them to actually deliver their services. Such obligation to give their service are recorded as liabilities. So for example, nagpa-load ka, na naka-load and then na-register na siya, dayon dili ka katawag og ka-text. So syempre, di ba lain kayo? So that is a liability sa telecommunication nga company. So kaya nagpa-load naman ka na sila liability sa imuha to render their service. And what is their services? Maka-text o makatawag ka. Then next, we have equity, reflects the residual claims or net assets of the owners of an entity. So this is similar to the net worth part of the SALN of our public servants. Take note, class, that there are only residual claim of the owners since the creditors get their share of the entity first before the owners are given their share. So generally, equity comes from two sources. We have, first comes from directly from the owners in the form of investments or capital. So dira na mo fall si capital kang equity. And also the other comes from the income of the business from its normal operation. So the net income or net loss of the business from its operation can be determined by using the following equations. You can see we have revenues minus expenses is equal to net income or net loss. And recall the accrual, the matching principle. Recall the matching principle we have. It says in our accounting concept and principle, pag abot kang matching principle, nga unsa gali, every revenue na agyud na siya katapat nga expenses. So walay revenue kung wala kay expenses. So that's why we have revenue minus expenses is equal to net income or net loss. So that's the end of our part 1 in our accounting equation. So kindly stand by for the video that is going to be uploaded later. Okay, so I hope you study your lesson.